This is Look West, a podcast from California's Assembly Democrats. Hi, I'm Mahalia LeClaire with a bonus episode of the Look West podcast. Earlier this year, the LA fires devastated Pacific Palisades and Altadena. 30 lives and more than 15,000 homes and businesses were lost. Look West went to Pacific Palisades in early April, and DCO producer Don Andrews sat down with Assemblymember Jacqui Irwin, whose own satellite office burned down, and California Volunteers Chief Service Officer Josh Fryday, who marshaled hundreds of volunteers to help the fire victims. They sat down inside the fire zone, along the Pacific Coast Highway, where the sirens and the roar of the flames in January have been replaced by the sounds of hundreds of trucks and heavy equipment.
Welcome to Look West.
Thank you very much.
Great to be here.
Glad you were both able to be with us today. Before we start talking about what life is like today, I hope you don't mind, but I'd like to step back just for a brief moment here and find out what life was like both personally and professionally for you two during the time in January.
Yes, well, on January 6th, our new session started up in Sacramento, but I'd been listening to the news and there were very dire reports of really dangerous fire conditions. So Tuesday morning, after we had session on Monday, I woke up, I saw it was about 5 o'clock, and I thought, I got to catch the next flight out because the highest winds were supposed to be on starting Tuesday at 12 o'clock. So flew out of Sacramento to Burbank. It was a very bumpy flight. The flights after were canceled, and it was pretty ominous because the pilot said, "I'm going to make one try of this, and otherwise we're going to be landing at LAX because we're seeing winds at 60 miles an hour." So luckily we landed. The pilot did a phenomenal job, and as I was driving on the 118, I looked over and saw massive smoke coming out of what looked like the Santa Monica Mountains. Unclear. We weren't really clear. I wasn't really clear where it was coming from, so turned on the radio and started to hear stories about the fire in the Palisades. As soon as I got home, I turned on the TV. The reporters here did an incredible job of keeping up on what was going on, but the wind even in my yard was howling, 60, 70 miles an hour. The trees felt like they were going to be dropping on your home, and then just watching what was going on with the fires in horror. And that evening, two other fires started also, the Eaton and the fire up in Sylmar. I was basically up the whole night talking to my team and making sure that we were getting information out about road closures, about evacuations, anything that residents in this area needed to know. But it was just extremely frightening, and those conditions lasted on and off for probably another 14 days, and a lot of other areas burned, and it was really quite scary and quite sad, because that first night we were already hearing stories of people that we knew. Probably 80% of the people I knew in the Palisades lost their homes. So we looked at every day, what is it that our team can do to help? And the first thing that first night was the evacuation centers, which was one in Westwood. My team down here in the district went over there and set up a table to help residents. And we saw the number of residents that had just no place to go those first few nights. Yeah. So Ryan, who is over here, my district director, they had to set up another site for veterans that were being evacuated from the West LA Center, and he got a team together. They set up beds all night for veterans. And then after that, the team moved over to the Disaster Recovery Center. And basically every day we've been just responding to the needs of the residents. So first it was, what are the evacuation routes? Where can we go to stay? When does repopulation start? When can I see my home? Has my home burned down? And we just try to help people every step of the way. And right now we're at the point where people are, they're done with the toxic waste debris removal, and people are waiting for the phase 2 debris removal to clear their lots so that they can start over on their lives. But we've tried to get out as much information as possible, really connect people to the help that they need.
When did you learn that your own satellite office had not survived?
I think it was probably, we had seen the pictures. We probably found out about it on the second or third day. We've been able to go through the fire area. I think by the third day we went through with OES and looked at the damage. But it was our satellite office. That can all be replaced. But what it was really indicative of is how much the community lost. Almost everything in the downtown area burned. We went through neighborhoods where there were just no homes standing. Unless you really see it, it is impossible to comprehend the level of damage. And here we are, a few months later, we're sitting at the site of one of our favorite restaurants, Moon Shadows, and we're in a parking lot.
A former restaurant.
A former restaurant. There is no evidence that this restaurant was even here, except when you look down the cliff at the charred timber, and I think the rest of what was left of the restaurant washed out to the ocean. And now we see the hard work going on by the Army Corps of Engineers, removing debris. I think it's 900 trucks a day are coming out of the Palisades area to try to clear this area. The amount of debris is really unfathomable. But when you look at the community, you're also wondering how can they possibly clean it up. And I really have to give a lot of credit to the Army Corps and the EPA, because they are moving very quickly. EPA was able to clear most lots of toxic debris in 45 days, and that includes car batteries, which are very difficult, and pesticides, and right. So they did a real phenomenal job, and obviously the debris removal takes a little bit longer, but they're ratcheting it up, and we hope that that people will soon start to see their future here again.
Josh, what was it like for you in January?
I'll never forget coming in on that first night that we scrambled down from Sacramento to get down here, and flying into Burbank and seeing flames surrounding in all the mountains. And like Assemblymember Irwin, when we went to take our first pass at landing, we were a couple seconds from landing, and the plane actually pulled up because the winds were so strong coming in the tail, and we thought we were going to have to be rerouted. The pilot decided to take one more shot at it. We ended up being able to land. As soon as we got off the plane, I went immediately to the Pasadena Convention Center,
right,
where it was the first night that almost over 1,200 residents were seeking shelter. And I was going there because the members of the California Service Corps were there to set up the shelter for people all throughout the community. And we saw families. We saw an entire senior citizen home of people who had been relocated to the shelter that night. And what was so striking to me was, amidst this apocalyptic scene, when I got to the shelter, were people helping each other. I remember this one scene of a young child who walked in, probably was 6 or 7, my son's age, and he still had ash on his face. And he started handing out boxes of noodles, dinner, to other strangers that were there. And that was the scene. The scene was chaos, and it was fear, and it was also heroism and community, and people coming together to support each other. And for the next several days, we saw just an unbelievable outpouring, as you said, not just in Los Angeles, but throughout California and throughout the world, of people coming together. But we saw the best of California, of people stepping up for each other, people supporting each other. The second day, we got up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to the YMCA downtown Los Angeles to do a call to action for volunteers to help set up the donation sites throughout LA. And we got there, and the volunteers had beat us there. They were outside before the sun came up, waiting in line to jump into work and start preparing donation boxes and other materials for people. So people were ready to step up in the disaster, and we saw them step up in just unbelievable ways.
I also want to mention
Yes.
there was an incredible outpouring from the volunteers, but there was also, we saw incredible generosity from throughout the entire world. The amount of fundraisers we had to support fire victims, the amount of money that came in from everywhere was truly incredible, and I think that it gave a lot of hope to the fire victims.
We talked a little bit about what was going on back in January. Putting out the fires, we cannot diminish what a massive effort that was. Now, some people call it this anyway, comes the hard part. Rebuilding is just as hard, no easy task. Assemblymember Irwin, what are the biggest challenges facing the people that are fire victims today? You've been in contact with all of these people now for weeks and months. What are they facing?
They're facing big issues, and I would say the first thing people were concerned about is, would their insurance pay for them to rebuild? Would their insurance pay for a place to stay? Were they underinsured? And it turns out a lot of folks were underinsured. A lot of folks were on the FAIR plan, which was not necessarily as generous as some of the other admitted carriers. So that's the first issue that people are grappling with. So we worked with Ricardo Lara and had co-sponsored a number of town halls on insurance and had huge turnouts there because people were they had questions they couldn't necessarily get through. Our office tried, whenever somebody had a problem reaching one of the insurance carriers, we made sure that we were able to connect them. So having a place to stay longer term, I think, was the next big issue, and now people are really grappling with, what is it that I want to do? Do I want to rebuild in my community? There's some areas where a lot of the homes stayed up and just survived, and just a few burned down, and we've helped residents in those areas, and they absolutely want to build as fast as possible. But it's a different question for people that are in neighborhoods where the entire neighborhood burned down, and theirs is the one home surviving. I've heard some survivors in that situation say, frankly, I wish my house had burned down, because they're dealing with, what is the air quality? What is the water quality? What is going on with my home as all these other homes are being cleared and rebuilt? So we are just there one step at a time, trying to connect people again to the services that are relevant to them at this time.
In fact, you held a town hall webinar last night with the State Contractors Licensing Board. That's got to be useful. Like you say, getting the quality information to your constituents is a real important job, and they can't really do much without it.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that everybody knows this is how you find a quality contractor. Make sure that the contractor has a license, and especially be wary of scams. People that just come up to you, sign you up on their iPad. So we're letting them know that at the state level there is help. The gentleman that spoke was very helpful, gave the website, let people, we did a question and answer period, and he gave out his contact information. But the other thing we had 3 people in charge of permitting, as City of Malibu, representing the City of Malibu, the City of LA, and the county. On the webinar
last night.
On the webinar, and they were very helpful with
still helicopters flying.
There's still helicopters flying, and they were very helpful with questions that people have, especially along the beach. A lot of these areas are in the coastal zone, so knowing what the rules are going to be for that, how much of your home can you rebuild. and still get streamlining, expedited permitting. Right now it's 10%. People want to know exactly what that means. There's things that we can do up at the legislative level to make sure that right now, as the property tax, as people are going to the assessors and lowering the value of their property, making sure that as their property taxes go down, that the state is backfilling that like they do with all the major disasters. So there's every step along the way we encounter other issues. What they're doing in Palisades also is they have a system now of team captains, so somebody in charge in every one of the communities trying to relay information up to the officials and then spreading information out to the community. So we hope to help folks get involved with that team captain program also.
The state is playing an important role here. Josh, you look like you'd like to chime in here.
Just like we've learned lessons from other fires like the Paradise Fire of both how long it can take for people who've lost everything to get the resources that they need, and also how frustrating it can be to navigate the federal government on all the paperwork that it takes. So one of the things that we did is early on in recognition of this is deploy California Service Corps members to be navigators, to go to disaster resource centers that were set up, like the ones in Westwood and Altadena. And so our California Service Corps members were deployed on day one of the disaster resource centers being set up to be a welcoming smile and a welcoming hand, and also to help assist people to file the paperwork that they needed, to do the follow-up, to actually get the resources that they need. And what we've seen is at these disaster resource centers, we've already served over 26,000 people who just needed to get the resources they deserve. And I think one of the things that we're doing, one of the things I appreciate from the legislature so much, is focusing on how to make it easier. How to make it easier to break down some of these barriers, to break down some of these processes, just to get people what they deserve and need.
So I'd like to invite all of you to stay tuned. At the end of this episode, we will have a batch of website information for you so that you can perhaps play back Assemblymember Irwin's webinar from the State Contractors Licensing Board and others, and learn more about the resources available not only through Cal Volunteers but through the state. Please stay tuned for the end of this episode so that you can get that information if you'd like. If I may, just a very brief personal story, if you will. On the night that the fires were getting underway, I was driving to Los Angeles to drop my daughter off at school. My daughter and my wife and I were here for just a few days. But one of the things that we saw from the media coverage and from just being in the area was that there was this unbelievable level of support that you both just mentioned. It's tragic what happened, and I don't mean to diminish the role that the first responders played. But the massive outpouring, all of those people who were there at the Pasadena Center, all of those volunteers that showed up, that was just astounding. Josh, you organize volunteers for a living. Am I overstating the response to the LA fires?
No, it was unbelievable, and it was inspiring. And I think it shows the best of what California is, that when times are hard, we do come together. We step up for each other. We support each other. And it also showed why it's so important that we invest in things, and why it's so important that the legislature has stepped up to invest the California Service Corps, which helped organize and mobilize a lot of those volunteers, but also to provide the infrastructure, because when a disaster does strike, here's what we know from the research, all the research that's out there. When a disaster strikes, you are much more likely to be helped by a neighbor than you are anyone from government. And so creating the infrastructure and the ability for people to understand how to plug in and how to volunteer and how to make a difference and how to show up at the YMCA and at the food bank and all these unbelievable organizations who stepped up in such incredible ways, creating that infrastructure and maintaining that infrastructure is what allows us to come together as a community when these disasters do strike.
And Jacqui, isn't that part of all of these volunteers and all of the support? Is it built an entire giant community?
It certainly did, and we hope to be able to maintain that community as time goes on. But as you mentioned, the heroism of the first responders, of the firefighters and the police, day after day, these men and women were fighting the fires in 24-hour shifts. They were exhausted, and it went on for a very long period of time. But there were volunteers there. There were people who were coming by and generously donating food and drinks, and everybody wanted to help. Our office was inundated with people that said that they wanted to volunteer. And I will do a little plug. We are going to be doing a day of service in this Malibu, Pacific Palisades area in September. And we want to make sure that volunteers can continue to help serve this community and continue to keep this community together. And we'll be doing things like beach cleanups or helping at the YMCA. We haven't figured out every aspect yet, but we think it's very important to let people lend a hand.
Yeah, I'd love to just applaud the Assemblymember for leading this effort, because I think one of the things that's so devastating about this natural disaster, these fires, is that people didn't just lose their home, they lost their community. Entire communities burned down, churches, schools, community centers, restaurants, the local corner store. And so it is so critical for our leaders to create opportunities for us to come together in our community. And again, not just the day after the fire, not just the week after, but months after. So I love that you have a service day. I'd love to promote it in any way we can. And I think if we can have more opportunities like this where we keep building community, it's going to allow us to come out of this disaster stronger than before.
How does someone sign up to help today? Can they turn to California Volunteers and
They can, and we need them to. So you can go to californiavolunteers.ca.gov and you can sign up for an opportunity to make a difference in your community, whether you have an hour to give or a year to give. If you want to be one of those heroes, one of the California Service Corps members that stepped up and deployed during this disaster and continue to make a difference, you can sign up to get paid and get help going to school by serving your community as a member of the California Service Corps. You can also sign up to do a day of service, and you can sign up to take action at home that's going to help people who are impacted by these fires. So we're looking for everyone, and our message is quite simple. We need you.
So the podcast is called Look West because back when it was started a few years ago, we decided that we wanted to highlight the way California leads the rest of the country, how the rest of the country can look west to California for leadership on different issues. And rather than ask you whether or not California is a leader when it comes to fighting fires and recovery efforts, I'm wondering if you're both proud of the way California responded, both officially and unofficially.
I am absolutely proud of how Californians responded, all the way down from the person that was helping their neighbor to make sure that they were able to evacuate, to the firefighters, to the elected officials, the local elected officials, that city council members that were really just right there every step of the way. And the governor was down here immediately, and the president was down here, both President Biden and President Trump. So up and down, I'm very proud of the response, and it is, if you're able to find a silver lining, it is that we really saw the best of people.
Josh?
I think she said it all. Incredibly proud. We should be. And, we have an unfortunate reality in California where we're on the front lines of climate change. And these fires, there's no such thing as a fire season anymore. This fire, these devastating fires that we're talking about, they happen in January.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be our wettest months. And we're going to continue to face disasters. And so the fact that we've created things like the California Service Corps to be able to give people the opportunity to come together and to serve, we're very proud of. And these programs are now models for other states throughout the country. But I think we've created lots of opportunities and lots of models for how to respond to a changing climate. And we should be very proud about that, and we should also be very sober about the daunting challenges we have ahead.
Assemblymember Jacqui Irwin, Chief Service Officer from California Volunteers, Josh Fryday. Thank you both for sitting down here in a parking lot on the side of the road in Pacific Palisades to talk a little bit about what's going on and how it feels to be able to help. Appreciate both of you being on Look West.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Many thanks to Assemblymember Irwin and California Volunteers Josh Fryday and their staff for helping put this episode together. To watch Assemblymember Irwin's fire recovery town halls, you can find them all on her website, a42.asmdc.org/videos. To learn more about California Volunteers and the California Service Corps, go to californiavolunteers.ca.gov, or you can find the links in our show notes. I'm Mahalia LeClaire. Thank you for listening to this bonus episode of Look West.
The Look West podcast is produced by the DCO Pod Squad for the California Assembly Democrats. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode. When you think of Californian politics, remember to look west.